generals, professors, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. As a commander, I would like to welcome you very cordially, and I'm very pleased to be able to welcome you here to the National Defense Academy for this year's strategy conference. After me, you look at the schedule, your agenda, we have scheduled an icebreaker. I believe that after more than 8 hours of intensive presentations, I guess as were heated debates, we are going to maybe turn the icebreaker into a cooling down phase, because I heard that afterwards you will have a fireside chat which will warm us up again, I guess. You may ask yourselves, why are we organizing this event here at the National Defense Academy? Why are we organizing a strategy conference? Now, what is the significance of this event? You may wonder, what's the reason behind it? There are a couple of reasons, and in view of the late hour, I'm not going to refer to all of them, but I'm going to talk about a few of them. Now, the first point is the National Defense Academy is the highest level of research and education of the Austrian Federal Army. Thus, it is our task and it is incumbent upon us, and we have also a responsibility to ensure that the academic teaching and research in terms of military science is organized by us. Now, when I'm talking about the core subjects of military science, it is strategy that is, of course, a very important aspect. Now, the second point, the basic mandate of the National Defense Academy, and allow me to maybe elaborate, because last year we celebrated our 50-year anniversary as the National Defense Academy. Looking back at our history, education and training has hundreds of years of tradition. To be precise, more than 300 years, where in this army barracks we had training and education courses taking place. And the predecessor organization, the Imperial War Academy, which was also the highest military educational facility, dates back to 1852. And by the way, it is not only this room or this building that was built between 1746 until 1749. But education has been taking place here much longer than that. Why the National Defense Academy in 1967? So why was it renamed? Why was the then academy restructured? And here I would like to refer to the fact that at the beginning of the 60s, in this very place, there were interministerial security policy considerations that any costs in terms of security policy for national defense is a national task, and it should not be shouldered by a single institution alone. And this turned into our comprehensive national defense strategy, and this in turn turned to the National Defense Academy, because Of course, this required an institution that can deal with these subject matters of security policies at the national level, and where we have a research and education facility that is dealing with these pan-national security tasks. Since this is a security strategy, well, we are talking about the strategy plan, the strategic plan that emerged from this, and this comprehensive national defense means the military, the civilian, the economic defense, and it all has the spiritual component as a foundation. And we're now experiencing an era where this is becoming increasingly important if you bear in mind the current and future security policy challenges. So it is for that reason that very early, and today of course these are buzzwords, a whole of government approach and a whole of nation approach evolved, and also the international dimension was added in the following, so international cooperation and the so-called comprehensive approach. And all of that has been turned into a culture at the National Defense Academy. It's intricately related to the National Defense Academy. It is our philosophy, and in the final analysis, this makes this house what it is. The conference, therefore, and if you take a good look and if you look at the list of participants, this conference is not only directed to the military segment, but it goes far beyond the military dimension. It is directed in the final analysis to decision makers. Decision makers in politics, the public administration. It is directed to decision makers in the executive branch of government, in private companies, and it is also directed towards young academics who are interested in strategy matters. And that takes me to the next point, the third point. Today, in particular in our democratic societies, we are faced with certain challenges. We are media-driven. We are dominated by headlines. That's day-to-day business. Our decision makers, our strategic decision makers, are actually confronted with dealing immediately with these headlines and to act directly and immediately and to take decisions immediately that are immediately visible, that are covered by the media, that you can read up on and that are documented. But the strategic, long-term thinking is often, well, neglected. And it is for that reason that often we are overwhelmed, and this is also the reason why we are often surprised. And this is also the reason why time and again we are caught unawares and unprepared. And this is why, ladies and gentlemen, this strategy conference is so important. And we, as a research institution, as a teaching institution, we are also a think tank. We consider the strategy conference as an important lighthouse project. I believe that this is also a high-ranking strategy development platform with very many distinguished international participants, and I'm very, very grateful to all of you for your participation, for your contributions, and for your active participation. Now I'd like to refer to another point, namely the significance of this conference. And you may remember the inaugural ceremony of the strategy conference. Well, this inauguration, well, it was opened by our Secretary General of the Ministry of Defense, Dr. Wolfgang Baumann. And if you take a look at the agenda for the coming days, you will also find a presentation to be given by our Minister for Foreign Affairs, Dr. Karin Kneißl. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe this is a yardstick for the political perception of our strategy conference. I think we can consider that this is a barometer for the interest of politicians in our activities, especially in light of the third point that I mentioned in my address. And the last point, this is a major objective of ours. This is something that we would like to achieve with this strategy conference, is that we should have a chair on strategic thinking at this academy. We want to develop this course, and this is very important because it is only through the opinion leaders at the highest levels of government, and of course they are also to be convinced that we should so provide strategic advice to them and have a far-sighted approach and act accordingly. And this is why we are trying systematically to also secure the results of this series of conferences. These conferences are also streamed on YouTube, and we're also issuing conference proceedings, a conference volume that is published by the Miles publishers. And this is very important, this publication, to my mind, because then things can turn into a fruitful foundation for further results. Now this takes me to the end of my intervention. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank you. I would like to thank the organizers and the institutions in my own house, in the National Defense Academy. Thank you for having gone to all the pains of preparing and organizing this event. I would like to thank the aspects of strategic communication, EMPA, the European Military Press Association, and I would also in particular like to thank all of you, dear participants. Thank you for taking part in this strategy conference. Thank you for your active participation. I would like to wish all of us very interesting presentations that I'm convinced of, and I hope that there will be fruitful presentations and discussions, and we hope that we can continue to learn and maybe also teach what we learned here. So thank you very much for your attention, and now there's a real goodie for you. We have a buffet dinner for you, so the buffet is now open. Thank you very much and enjoy the rest of the evening.